Pretty amazing stuff. By the way, Jussie Smollett still has his defenders. He has his defenders on the grounds that President Trump is bad. Now, President Trump is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card for a lot of folks on the left who don't want to acknowledge that something really, truly terrible happened right here. D.L. Hughley, alleged comedian, was on CNN with Block of Wood, Chris Cuomo, and he was talking about Jussie Smollett. He said, well, you know, Jussie Smollett shouldn't go to jail. President Trump isn't in jail. Well, that's because President Trump didn't claim falsely that he was beaten half to death and then called racial slurs by people he had hired. That's why President Trump isn't in jail. D.L. Hughley and his hat don't seem to understand that.
You know, it's interesting when you use hatred and bigotry and lying for your own selfish end, and you're a young black kid, gay black kid, you get indicted. If you do it when you're an old white guy, you become president. And I think there are enough monsters out there for real that we don't have to make any up. White supremacists has never, they're at a historical high. Just it's interesting that the president would focus more on the kid that orchestrated a fake attack, but not the man, white supremacist, who was orchestrating an actual attack.
How exactly is this on national news? Really, like, how is this on CNN? What is D.L. Hughley saying here that is of any value whatsoever? I mean, he's saying a couple of things, and neither of them make any sense. The first thing he says is that if you use racism for your own personal ends and you're black, you go to jail. No, actually, if you use racism in politics to your own personal ends, you end up getting elected to high office as well. It turns out that race baiting on every side is very lucrative business. That's why Jussie Smollett tried to hoax. The reason Jussie Smollett tried this routine is because he knew there was power in race baiting for personal gain. Al Sharpton is still meeting with people after helping perpetrate the Tawana Brawley hoax, and it's 35 years later. So D.L. Hughley is just wrong about this. The reason Jussie Smollett is going to jail is because he actually took up police resources by reporting a fake hate crime. If Jussie Smollett had just gone out there and preached about how America is racist and how white people, broadly speaking, are racist, he'd be on the cover of Time magazine next week. He'd be getting multi-million-dollar deals like Colin Kaepernick. So D.L. Hughley is just wrong about that. And then when D.L. Hughley continues to suggest that white supremacism is at an all-time high in the United States, you know how ignorant you have to be of American history to believe that? You're truly ignorant of American history. An all-time high, we had a literal war in this country where 500,000 people died because it seems like probably when there were actual slaves being held in the United States, probably then is when white supremacy was at its height. If I had to guess, I'd probably peg it right then. And then, you know, when it was also really high? It was also really high when we had a legal system of discrimination against black people that was promoted throughout the South and enshrined in law up until the mid-60s. That seems like a time when white supremacism was at its all-time high. You know when it's not at its all-time high? In a country that 3 years ago, a black man was president of the United States. The Attorney General of the United States was a black man. The Secretary of State, Susan Rice, was a woman of color. I mean, what? The attempt to paint America as deeply racist in spite of Jussie Smollett is amazing.